Well, tonight is the final Democratic debate before the Iowa caucus on February 3rd, and just 6 candidates made the cut this time. But one candidate spending a lot of money on advertising right now will not be on that stage, and that is Michael Bloomberg. For more on what we should expect from the debate is Bradley Tusk of Tusk Venture Partners, and we have our editor-in-chief, Andy Serwer, with us. Good morning to you both. Bradley, I'm going to start with you, and I want to start with the one person who's not going to be on that debate stage tonight, and that's Michael Bloomberg, because you were the campaign manager for his 2009 re-election bid.
10 a.m. meeting, so right after this, I'm going to.
Oh, great.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'd love your take on this. He has outspent everybody thus far, spending well over $100 million just on ads. We haven't seen him in the debates yet. Is he gaining traction with voters?
Yeah, he is. I mean, just if you look at the different national polls, he keeps tracking up and up. Both the ads that he's doing and also the field operation. He's hired, I think, up to 800 people now working in states all over the U.S. But really, it comes down to this. If no one runs away with the first 4 states, then I think we're very much in the mix. If any of the top candidates sweep through Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, I think it's very hard to first enter the race on Super Tuesday and be competitive. But look, we know weird things happen in politics all the time, and we're preparing for it.
Bradley, how big of a problem is it that Bloomberg won't be on the stage tonight?
Well, look, it's not a huge problem yet, because I think we're still introducing ourselves to the voters. If we hit a point where we're consistently in double digits in every single national poll, and we're not on the stage, I think it's a problem not just for us and for the other candidates, but for the voters, because they should be entitled to see one of the leading candidates and hear their views.
Andy, who are you looking forward to hearing from tonight?
Oh, wow. There's a lot of narratives to look for tonight. For instance, one is Bernie Sanders. You know, he, by some measures, is the front runner right now in terms of money raised in the polls. And people have been reluctant to beat him up a little bit. And then, of course, there's the reported rift between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren about whether or not a woman could win the presidency. Apparently, he said that. Elizabeth Warren said he said that. He said he didn't say that. So you got a little he said, she said there. And then there's the topics, too. In other words, foreign policy. How are they going to talk about what's going on in Iran right now? And then impeachment, another thing that I'm looking forward to having them discuss.
Bradley, how do you think the candidates on the stage will tackle those 2 big issues, foreign policy and impeachment?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, on impeachment, they're all going to say that Trump should be removed from office, so there's not that much to really disagree with. They'll all criticize McConnell, they'll all praise Pelosi, nowhere to really go. Foreign policy, you could start to see some real differences on how hawkish or not we should be around Iran. All of the candidates said that they were skeptical a little bit of the Soleimani assassination because it wasn't clear that an attack on the U.S. was imminent in any way. But still, some of them are going to be more hawkish than others, and that is a point of differentiation.
How important is tonight to Pete Buttigieg? Because we all thought he was gaining some traction.
I think it's really important, actually, because if Buttigieg doesn't come in first or at least a close second in Iowa, it's really hard to see how the candidacy proceeds from there. And he's now somewhere between 3rd or 4th, depending on a lot of the Iowa polls, sometimes 2nd. And I think he needs a strong performance to lock in one of those top 2 slots. If that doesn't happen, he may start fading away.
Andy, on foreign policy, this should be in Joe Biden's wheelhouse.
Yeah, it should be. And I mean, we didn't even mention his name, which maybe says something. Yeah, I mean, he is the guy. And, when you talk about it, I was interested to hear Brad say that if one candidate emerges, that Mike Bloomberg may step back. That's interesting to me. And I think maybe that person especially would be Joe Biden. Because if Joe Biden is in the 4, I think that doesn't leave a lot of room for the mayor.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, Mike will obviously compete through Super Tuesday and beyond that no matter what. But one of the reasons that Mike got in the race was at the time the Biden campaign seemed to be imploding. Right. Warren was ascendant, and Mike's view is that Warren would have a very hard time, and Sanders as well, beating Trump. And it was like, okay, we could be setting ourselves up for a Trump re-election. I should step in and do something about it. If Biden wins Iowa, he's clearly going to be very strong.
Does Bloomberg have interest in a VP position if Biden does emerge?
I don't think so. So on one hand, history says no one really turns that job down. On the other hand, Mike has been talked to and vetted by candidates actually from both parties over the years. I could see a world where he could be a really impactful Secretary of State or Defense or Treasury.
Has he said he'd be interested in a position like that?
He wants to be president, and quite frankly, having worked for Mike and knowing some of the candidates, he's far and away the most qualified and best person to be president. But overall, it's not in his personality, I think, to be a vice president.
And, speaking of vice presidents, because we had Cory Booker drop out, and people are talking about him potentially being a vice president. Also, lack of diversity on the stage, right? Yes. Because they're all white candidates at this point. Deval Patrick is not going to be participating. So I think between those two things, the diversity and the VP stakes are kind of being interesting thing too.
There was some talk that maybe Amy Klobuchar could even be VP material.
She could. I mean, here's the thing. On one hand, we could entertain ourselves for hours debating kind of the different pros and cons of every candidate. Other than 1960, when LBJ literally stole Texas for Kennedy, it's not really clear the VP has any effect on the actual outcome of the election one way or another. They may, if it's someone like Dick Cheney, have an impact on governance. But, I feel like we like talking about that stuff. And at the end of the day, when you look back on our election, the answer is usually it didn't matter.
It should be a fun night nonetheless.
Yes.
Bradley Tusk, good to see you. Andy Serwer, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.